What if there was an eighth Hermetic law, hidden for centuries, waiting to be discovered? Very few people make it this far. If you found this video, it wasn't by chance. Since ancient times, alchemy has been hidden in plain sight. But for this lost law to reveal itself, you must pass through the 7 portals of alchemy. Each portal represents a transformation. Each one destroys an illusion, and if you've made it here, it means you're already on the path. But before you continue, there's something you need to understand. If you cross this portal, your perception will never be the same again. Are you ready? Before we go deeper, you need to know one thing. Alchemy has always been a secret path, not because it was hidden, but because few were ready to see it. It doesn't happen outside, in books, rituals, or ancient symbols. It happens within, an invisible, silent process where everything you thought you were is destroyed, transformed, and reborn. But this journey doesn't happen all at once. There's no shortcut. The ancients knew this. Great masters, initiates of mystery schools, left clues, maps, signs. They called this journey the Great Work, but it was never something fixed. For each person, the path is unique, but there's one thing in common for all who awaken: the portals. 7 portals. 7 stages that every seeker must go through to achieve transmutation. Each portal demands something from you, something that must be left behind, something that must be burned, dissolved, recreated. Each one is a test, and most people don't make it through all of them. The question is, how far are you willing to go? The first portal, the death of the old self. Nigredo. Or this is the first impact, the phase where everything you believed yourself to be starts to crumble. All certainties, all absolute truths, everything you carried your whole life as you begins to disintegrate, and there's no way to avoid it. That's why this phase is called Nigredo, the dark night of the soul. It's when everything falls apart, when nothing seems to make sense anymore. But this collapse is not a mistake. It's necessary, because you can't carry old structures into a new reality. You can't transform while holding on to what you've always been. Those who don't understand this process try to resist. They fight to hold on to what's falling apart. But those who cross this portal embrace the fire of transformation. The chaos is not destroying you. It's refining you. The second portal, inner illumination, Albedo. Silence arrives. After the old self dies, there's emptiness, a loss of identity. Something has been burned away, but what emerges in its place is not yet defined. This is the moment when everything becomes still, but it's also a moment of extreme vulnerability. Here, the only way forward is to look within. The mind wants answers. It wants security, but there are no more certainties, and that is terrifying. Can you handle this silence? If you can, you will notice something most people never do. The answers you've been searching for were always within you, but they were never heard. The third portal, alignment with universal truth. Then something happens. The pieces start to fit together. What once seemed random now makes sense. You look at your own life and see the patterns. Nothing was ever by chance. Every person who crossed your path, every pain, every repetition, every synchronicity. And then the 7 Hermetic Principles become clear. You realize the world was never against you, that your reality was always a reflection of what was happening within, and that the universe doesn't respond to what you wish for, but to what you are. Now, you understand the rules of the game, but knowing the rules isn't enough. You have to learn how to play it. The fourth portal, the power of the word and the materialization of reality. Words create. Everything you say, everything you think, everything you repeat shapes your life. This isn't theory. This is the foundation of reality. The ancients called this Heka, the magic of the word. Why do you think mantras, affirmations, prayers, and spells have always existed? No matter the culture, the era, or the place, humanity has always known this, but most people never realize it. The words you use about yourself determine who you become. The stories you tell about your life determine the reality you create. If you say your life is hard, it will be hard. If you say something isn't for you, then it won't be. But what if you start consciously choosing what to say? The fifth portal. the fusion of opposites, the balance of matter and spirit. Here, you realize that everything you were taught about light and darkness, good and evil, reason and intuition was incomplete. True power isn't in one extreme or the other. It's in the fusion of both. The ancient alchemists called this Rebis, the perfect union of opposites. The fire of transformation and the water of intuition must coexist. The energy of doing and the energy of being must walk together. You accept your shadow without getting lost in it. You embrace your light without becoming vain. You find balance, the sixth portal, the meeting with the inner master. You spent your whole life looking for answers, books, teachers, philosophies, religions. But now you realize that the true master was always within you. This doesn't mean you can't learn from the world, but it means no one can give you the truth. Because truth can't be taught. It can only be remembered, and you're starting to remember. Now, you trust yourself. Now, you know you no longer need external validation. Do you feel that? That certainty, that calm? That's not arrogance. That's awareness. The seventh portal, the Philosopher's Stone, and the final illumination, Rebis. Then, the last veil falls, the great revelation arrives, and you realize something that changes everything. Alchemy was never about turning lead into gold. It was always about transforming your perception. What once seemed mystical is now obvious. What used to be a secret is now natural. The last piece of the puzzle falls into place, and then something surprising happens. You realize this journey never had an end. Transmutation is not a destination. It's an eternal cycle. You never reach the end, because every revelation leads to a new beginning. Why did they never speak about the eighth Hermetic Law? You've made it this far. You've crossed the portals. Now, everything that once seemed vague is becoming clear. The internal transformation has already begun, and your perception of the world will never be the same again. But there's something that needs to be said. Something no one ever told you. The ancient masters left behind powerful knowledge, a map of reality, a set of principles that explain the mechanics of the universe. They were recorded in the Kabbalion, one of the most enigmatic texts of the Hermetic tradition, and they are known as the 7 Hermetic Principles. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. These laws govern everything that exists. They explain the hidden structure of reality, how events unfold, the connection between the micro and the macro, the visible and the invisible. But something is wrong. Something has always felt incomplete, because even with all this knowledge, something is still missing. Something that ties it all together. Something that keeps the gears turning. And that absence is no accident. There is an 8th Hermetic Principle, and if this information was suppressed, it wasn't by mistake. It was intentional. The initiates knew that some truths couldn't be given without preparation, that certain revelations, if misunderstood, could become tools of manipulation instead of liberation. This principle doesn't just support the other 7, it's the force that makes them work. Without it, the rest don't function fully. And now, this truth is resurfacing, because something is happening in the world, an awakening, a reclamation of forgotten wisdom. If you've made it to this point, it means this information has found you at the right time. Are you ready to know what has been hidden for centuries? The lost 8th principle, the generative principle, the power of care and creation. It's no coincidence that this truth was hidden. What you're about to discover isn't just a theoretical principle, it's the mechanism that drives all the forces of the universe. You already know the 7 Hermetic Principles. They explain how reality works, how everything vibrates, connects, and transforms. But there's something that keeps them alive, something that drives them, something that makes them more than just concepts. This is the generative principle. Without it, nothing happens. No law manifests, no transformation occurs, no creation is possible. The ancients knew this was the most important principle of all, because it's the invisible force behind everything. In Hermeticism, this principle was also called the care principle, not in the superficial sense of the word, but as the central axis of creation. What you care for grows, what you ignore disappears. Everything in the universe follows this principle. The energy you invest in things determines what flourishes and what fades away. If something exists, it's because some form of attention was given to it. Creation isn't passive. It requires active focus. This principle manifests in all Hermetic laws. Mentalism says everything is mind, but what activates the mind? Vibration says everything is in motion, but what drives that motion? Cause and effect explains that every action generates a reaction, but what defines the direction of that action? The answer lies in the generative principle. If you start paying close attention, you'll notice that everything that grows and expands has one thing in common: attention and care. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to live a life full of opportunities while others are stuck in cycles of scarcity and frustration? The difference isn't random. It's in the energy each person invests in their reality. Where you place your attention, you place your energy. What you nurture becomes stronger. What you neglect dissolves. If you spend your life feeding fear, doubt, and pessimism, that's what you'll see around you. If you cultivate growth, clarity, and action, that's what will take shape. Now, think for a moment. What have you been feeding in your own life? The generative principle isn't some distant concept. It's the foundation of your daily existence. You're already using it, consciously or unconsciously. The ancients understood this, which is why this principle is also tied to the concept of Genesis, to the very idea of creation. The word Genesis comes from the same root as generation, meaning to bring life, to create, to nurture. This principle isn't just an abstract law, it's constantly manifesting in everything. It's present in the mother who gives life, in the artist who turns inspiration into a masterpiece, in the thought that grows stronger until it becomes reality, in the idea that when nurtured materializes into the physical world. This means creation isn't a random event, it's a directed process. You now understand that the generative principle is the invisible force driving everything that exists. But now we arrive at the most important part. How does this law manifest in your life? It's not some distant concept, reserved for ancient texts or hidden theories. It's operating at all times, whether you realize it or not. Every thought, every choice, every emotion you nurture is shaping your reality at this very moment. Imagine a garden. Some seeds sprout while others dry up before they can grow. What makes the difference? Care. The plants that receive attention, light, and water thrive. The ones that are ignored wither away until they disappear. Life works the same way. Now, apply this to yourself. If you feed your fear, it grows. If you hold on to scarcity, your life will reflect that. If you reinforce limiting beliefs, they become walls around you. But if you nurture growth, expansion, and possibilities, that's what will begin to flourish. The secret the ancients hid is right here. You're not just a spectator in life. You are directly responsible for creating your reality. And to illustrate this, I'll share a short story with you, one that shows how this principle is always at work, even when we don't realize it. There was once a traveler named Amir who wandered through distant lands searching for a master who could teach him the secrets of life. After years of journeying, he arrived at a small village where a highly respected wise man lived. Upon meeting him, Amir asked the question he had carried since the beginning of his quest. "Master, what is the secret to a fulfilling life? What makes some people thrive while others remain trapped in suffering?" The master smiled and, without saying a word, led Amir to a vast field where two gardens grew side by side. One was lush, full of colorful flowers, fruits and trees that offered shade and nourishment. The other was dry, barren, with only a few struggling plants fighting to survive. "What do you see?" the master asked. "I see one garden full of life and another almost dead," Amir replied. "Exactly," said the master. "Now tell me, what made one thrive and the other wither?" Amir observed more closely and answered, "Someone watered this garden, cared for it, removed the weeds and made sure its roots had what they needed to grow. The other was forgotten, left at the mercy of time, without any care." The master nodded and then said, "Life works the same way. Whatever you nurture grows. If you feed doubt, it spreads like weeds. If you give energy to fear, it strengthens and takes over your soil. But if you water growth, if you care for your mind, your emotions and your choices, your reality flourishes. Amir remained silent, absorbing the master's words. The old sage smiled and added, "You will always have two gardens within you. The only question is, which one are you watering? Just like Amir's gardens, your life responds to what you feed. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, all of them bear fruit. What you cultivate within manifests on the outside. The generative principle shows that you were never at the mercy of chance. You've always had the power to choose where to place your energy." So the hidden truth about manifestation and the law of attraction. Many people try to change their lives just by thinking positively. They believe that simply wishing for something intensely will make the universe deliver exactly what they asked for. But if it were that simple, why do so many still feel stuck in the same struggles, the same cycles of scarcity, the same repeated frustrations? The mistake is in the interpretation. The generative principle reveals something that completely shifts how we understand manifestation. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you actively dedicate your energy to. What does that mean? It means that wanting something isn't enough. You might want prosperity, abundance, transformation, but if your energy is constantly focused on fear, lack, and doubt, that's what you're feeding. You can't plant a seed and expect it to grow if you never water it. You can't wish for a new life while still nurturing old patterns. The universe doesn't just respond to what you want. It responds to what you energetically sustain. That's why so many people say they've tried using the law of attraction, but nothing changed. Because desire without action is like dry soil waiting for a harvest that will never come. If you want something to manifest, you need to nurture that intention with attention and purpose. And here's the detail no one talks about. Action is also energy. The simple act of moving toward what you want already shifts the vibration of your reality. But the opposite is also true. If you do nothing, if you only dream without taking action, you are automatically feeding stagnation. The generative principle shows that manifestation doesn't happen through thought alone, but through the energy you give to things, the intention you sustain, and the actions that strengthen your direction. So the real question is, what have you been sustaining? Now that you know this principle, the choice is in your hands. What are you feeding? Where have you been directing your focus, your attention, and your time? What are you watering daily? Fear or trust? Stagnation or expansion? Transformation doesn't happen by chance. It needs to be nurtured, fed, and lived. The ancient sages always knew this, and that's exactly why this principle was hidden. Because those who understand this truth can no longer be controlled. Those who know that their reality is a direct result of what they feed can no longer blame fate, circumstances, or any external force. They become conscious creators. Now, the decision is in your hands. Now that you know this principle exists, something has changed. You can no longer say you didn't know. This knowledge found you for a reason, and with it comes a responsibility. What will you do now? Because what has been revealed here isn't just an idea. It's a power, and all power needs direction. You can simply go on as before, ignore this truth, and continue living on autopilot. You can go back to your routine, to the same old stories, to the patterns you've always repeated. But now you know this isn't random. Now you understand that every thought, every emotion, every choice you make is feeding something. And the only question left is, what will you feed? If you keep moving without awareness, the world around you will continue to be shaped randomly, built on your fears, your distractions, and external influences. But if you decide to apply this principle, if you start actively generating the reality you want, then something new will begin to unfold before your eyes. Because whatever you give attention and intention to will grow. This is your moment of choice. You can let this truth pass you by, or you can use it to transform your life. But there's something you need to know. Awakening isn't a one-time event. It's a process. Knowledge has no value if it isn't applied. Just understanding the eighth law isn't enough. You have to live it. And that's why, now more than ever, you need to continue this journey. Now that you have this knowledge, don't leave just yet. because this revelation was only the beginning. To help you apply this to your life in a real and practical way, I've prepared a special video that will take you even deeper into everything we've talked about here. In it, I explain how the 7 portals of alchemy brought you to this moment and how you can use this principle consciously to transform your reality. So don't leave just yet. Click the video appearing on the screen now and let's continue this journey together.